Hi, everyone, and welcome to our first ever virtual storytelling hour with BirdNote. My name is Bibi Baksh-Pabian, and I'm BirdNote's Communications Director.
And I'm Jessica France. I'm BirdNote's Development Director.
And we will be your hosts for today's event, and we've got some really amazing and inspiring stories to share with you today from five wonderful birders. But first, we wanted to mention a few quick housekeeping items. The event is being recorded and closed captioning is available as an option at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We want to make sure that this is a kind and welcoming environment for everyone. So bullying and harassment or spam of any kind will result in us removing you from the event. And just a quick note, if you can hold off from entering anything in the chat after each storyteller tells their story, it would be appreciated because sometimes it can be a little bit distracting to our speakers. We are excited to share that we've got 500 registrants, over 500 registrants for this event, representing North America and a number of countries around the world. And we've got two storytellers located outside the US. And you will want to stick around until the end of the event to hear the winners of BirdNote's 20th anniversary photo contest because we have gotten so many amazing submissions in this year.
Thanks, Phoebe. Just a little bit about BirdNote before we get started. BirdNote is an independent nonprofit media production organization that connects millions of people around the world with nature and birds through powerful storytelling. Seems fitting. We believe that birds connect us with the joy and wonder of nature, and that by telling vivid, sound-rich stories about birds and the challenges that they face, we can inspire listeners to care about the natural world and take steps to protect it. We've been doing this since 2005, and we've expanded from playing on one public radio station to now airing on more than 330 radio stations across North America, plus a global listening base through podcast services. We have an estimated audience of over 8.5 million people, and with that, we're helping to create a more peaceful and connected world by inviting people into the world of birds and connecting them with others who want to protect our shared environment.
And our popular shows, including BirdNote Daily, BirdNote in Espanol, and Bring Birds Back, are free for everyone and available at birdnote.org and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Our From Love to Action campaign to inspire 1 million people to take action to help birds in the next 3 years was inspired by the idea that when we love something, we feel moved to protect it. And so, by taking little actions like keeping your cats indoors, or planting native plants, or installing nest boxes, we can all make a huge difference.
It's a little bit of a mouthful, but I'm going to say it again. BirdNote is an independent nonprofit organization, and that means that we don't receive financial support from radio stations, advertising, or government grants. BirdNote is free to everyone, including local radio stations. We are primarily listener funded and funded by people who attend events like this, and the majority of the funds we use to produce BirdNote shows come from generous people like you who value BirdNote enough to make a contribution. This event, as you well know, is just a tiny piece of what we offer. So if you appreciate this event, we hope that you will please consider donating. Any amount that's meaningful to you, we're going to put the link in the chat. And you can, of course, learn more about birdnote.org and check out some previous events at our website.
Okay, it's now time to introduce our first speaker, Thomas Bancroft. Right. Thomas Bancroft is a writer, photographer focused on the natural world, as well as a science advisory council member for BirdNote. His goal is to capture people's imagination, encouraging them to think about life, nature, and the importance of protecting wild things. His PhD is in ornithology, and he was the vice president of the research department at the Wilderness Society and the chief scientist for the National Audubon. He now lives in Seattle, where he volunteers for the Washington Ornithological Society, the Mountaineers, and several other birding groups. And Washington State University Press recently published his first book, Beyond the Wonder: An Ecologist's View of Wild Alaska. And in the story that he's going to tell today, Tom recounts a suspenseful encounter with great gray owls. And so please join me in welcoming Thomas Bancroft.
Thank you, BB. I'm really excited to be here and have a chance to share this story with you. While standing in this forest, I cup my hands around my ears. The sweet evening song of a Swainson's thrush drowned out all but the faint babble of a creek and the buzz of mosquitoes. A distant second thrush echoed the first. Their opening whistles and spiral flourishes were spectacular. At At any other time, I would have paused to listen, but another sound was what I was straining to hear. The previous evening, Julie, Craig, and I had come along this trail in Okanagan National Forest just as twilight faded. The shriek call came from a patch of firs and pines across a small creek. We searched for that source, likely a young owl, for 30 minutes, careful to make no sounds. The light had mostly vanished, and we could detect no movement. Craig and I had returned, but all I could hear were the thrushes and mosquitoes. This coniferous forest is prime habitat for the gray ghost of the northern boreal forest. Great gray owls are large birds, looking a little bigger than a great horned owl, but actually weighing a little less. They prefer mature forests with numerous meadows, bogs, and small openings. This species breeds throughout Alaska and Canada, but only in some high elevation dry forests in western United States. These rodent eaters are often quite elusive. After sneaking in the direction of last night's call, I put a pair of headsets over my ears and pointed my microphone into the woods. Its parabolic reflector would amplify any sound. There it was, the shriek call of an owlet, persistent but faint and a little off to our left. We crept in that direction, careful not to snap twigs. We stopped to scan the trees up and down, looking for a shadow or a blob that might be an owlet. Young great gray owls will jump out of their nest when only a few weeks old. Much like rambunctious teenagers, they strive for independence well before they can fly. After tumbling to the earth, the young owls climb trees and hop back into the canopy. Usually they sit right against the trunk. I put the headsets on twice more over the next half hour. Finally, after moving several hundred yards, we could hear the whining child without the aid of a parabolic reflector. Craig and I continued, approaching a small meadow surrounded by larches, firs, and pines. I stepped around a 6-inch lodgepole pine and scanned every tree in front of me. Craig, who stood tight by my left shoulder, tapped my arm and pointed almost straight up. Oh my word. There it was, 40 feet up in the pine. An owlet sat perched on a small branch. Can we get the next slide? As expected, it was snug against the trunk, its talons curling over the branch, while its eyes glared down at me. I focused my long lens on the owlet. As my camera began capturing images, Craig tapped my shoulder again, this time pointing in front of me. Oh my word. Two owlets with slightly longer wings and tail feathers than the first sat on a horizontal branch nearly 40 feet up, and one gave that shriek call. Their dark eyes gave the impression of curiosity and amazement at seeing these strange, two-legged creatures walking into their home. As I focused my camera, an adult flew silently into the frame, gliding up to land beside the right screeching owlet, where it passed the vole from its mouth to the young. And then, just as quickly, it dropped off the branch, flying back through the forest. The ghost had come and gone. The breath slowly left my lungs as I continued to stare at the one with the vole hanging from its mouth, like a long piece of thick brown licorice. These owls are not rare in their prime habitat, but because these dry montane forests are remote, few people get a chance to see them. Adults hunt from perches, and a perfect hunting site is a small tree at the edge of a meadow. The facial feathers on their oversized heads direct sounds to their acute ears, and they hunt almost entirely by hearing their prey. After a minute, the owl wolfed down that vole in one huge gulp and then flew behind the trees to land precariously on the top of a subalpine fir. Its sibling followed it back into the forest. A few minutes later, an adult came in again, landing in the middle of a thicket, glaring right at me with another vole in its mouth. Then the second adult arrived with something in its mouth. It was as if that these two predators had flown down to the local corner store for a snack of fresh live meat for their children. For 30 minutes, I stood watching, camera ready, while Craig snuck to my right to see if he could spot where the other two had gone. An adult came in at least twice more, but never to the one above my head. That baby closed its eyes, yawned a few times, stretched its wings, and flexed one foot or the other, but never moved. Occasionally it stared into the forest, head cocked left, as if I didn't even exist. It never begged or seemed distressed that a parent didn't visit. The light was fading, and we decided to back out of this place and leave the owls to their own. We strolled silently through the forest, accompanied by a cloud of mosquitoes. The occasional screeches from the owlet pushed us along. Neither of us spoke or thought to swat at those insects that feasted on our blood. Thank you all very much. I still find it remarkable that I had the chance to experience this.
Thanks, Tom. That was great. I got goosebumps. I don't know about y'all. Okay, we're going to move on to Tanya Amaya, and I have the pleasure of introducing her. Tanya is a Honduran environmental engineer with a master's degree in geological and environmental studies. With over 20 years' experience, she has dedicated her career to developing innovative solutions in sanitation, sustainable tourism, and most recently, reef conservation. Her passion for birding began in 2002 while volunteering to monitor scarlet and green macaws in the Rio Platino Biosphere Reserve, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Over the years, she discovered a new creative outlet in photography, which she now uses to document her work and adventures, capturing the beauty of nature and the impact of conservation efforts. Please join me in welcoming Tanya Amaya.
Thank you, Jessica, and hello, everyone. Hola a todos. I'm Tanya Amaya, and I'm currently in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, where I was born and raised. But for this story, I'm going to transport you to another special place in Central America, and this is Belize. So in 2023, I set off on my first solo mini birding trip. It's a journey that was fueled by both my love for nature, but also a desire to explore a country that's linked to my ancestry. Now, this connection to the African diaspora in Belize is something that I discovered during a heartfelt conversation with my paternal grandmother decades ago. And this added many layers of meaning to this experience. When I went there, my main goal was to visit Crooked Tree Village and Wildlife Sanctuary, a place that I'm sure that most of you might be familiar with and that you should visit at some point. And there, I booked a bed and breakfast. It was really cozy, hosted by a charming family. And each day I was greeted by beautiful birds. You had belted kingfishers and some of the ones that you see here on the screen, black catbirds, lineated and acorn woodpeckers, but also I was surprised by the amount of vermilion flycatchers. And you can see a beautiful vermilion flycatcher there in the screen. And I ended up declaring it Crooked Tree's unofficial mascot because there were just so many of them and so beautiful. It was one of those misty tropical mornings that I got to meet Jane. Jane is a proud Crooked Tree resident, a veterinarian, and passionate birder. So we quickly connected over our shared love for birds, but also my curiosity in learning more about Garifunas in Belize, which is something that Jane, as an Afro-Caribbean, appreciated. She was very supportive of my interest in digging deeper into my roots. That same day, we decided to go out and explore the village trails. And that was the perfect background to just experience some overlooked birds in a different light. I remember us seeing this red cap mannequin, and we were both mesmerized by the understated beauty of this bird. You can see it right there, and its bright little eyes just shining right through the leaves, and that's just amazing. Then we continued walking a couple miles later, and we encountered another beautiful scene. And I think that's the image that's coming up next. And you can see these two vultures just perched in a beautiful tree, and there's a wood stork, and they're all just in the middle of this thick forest that's just covered in fog. And in the end, it's all just breathtaking. I thought that was the end of my trip. That was maybe the highlight, right? But no, Jane suggested that we continue our exploration in the city, where she introduced me to a unique hotspot, a wastewater treatment plant. Now, I've been working in conservation and sanitation for many years, so I was intrigued and I wanted to experience this facility with fresh eyes. We get to the place, and the place is just now similar to a riparian reserve. After many, many years, now you have surroundings are just teeming with wildlife. You have buntings, you have warblers, you have even crocodiles and herons just living peacefully in this environment. Now, at the moment, my photography skills were not keeping up with how agile these birds were. And I remember missing the opportunity to shoot a mangrove warbler that was just too close for us for my camera to focus. But then about half an hour later, the place just fell into a hush, the kind that makes you wonder what's happening out here. And then all of a sudden, without any warning, a yellow flash just catches my eye, and it's right there. And I think it's this image that you're going to see right now. And it was one of my favorite birds. I love it because it's tiny, it's outspoken, and it's a little cartoonish looking. And it's the common toady flycatcher. The outcome was this image that I believe shares a story about beauty and peace in an unexpected place. And I remember posting it and seeing a comment that really stuck with me, and it was full of excitement, and it said, "Right through the reeds." And I think that at some point I wanted to title this story "Right Through the Reeds," because I felt like that was a motivation on the impact that an image like this can have. It can evoke an emotion. And after that trip, I went on another solo birding trip in Panama, where Janie connected me to Miguel, a wonderful guide that I might see later on this year. Then she also linked me up with Elvis, another wonderful guide in Cozumel. So now, as I think about this trip, I acknowledge the importance of finding safe spaces for women to engage in outdoor activities, especially women of color. And, in the end, birding is an activity that's liberating for all of us here. It allows us to embrace nature while fostering exploration and self-discovery, like it has done for me. And looking at this experience as well, I realized that it was not just about the birds or the landscape. The story is about connections, friendships, and it's also about a shared joy in heritage. And then also the opportunity to discover hidden bird sanctuaries. So I reflect that in the end, the most wonderful experiences are the ones that you can have in unexpected places. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tanya. What a beautiful story. And it was just such a rewarding experience. And we had some people in the chat just agreeing with your sentiment about finding safe spaces for everyone to bird. So thank you for sharing that story with us. Our third speaker is Kostas Zolotas. So Kostas is a registered clinical counselor who works as a nature-based therapist or an NBT with the charitable organization Human Nature Counseling Society. So NBT is just like regular therapy, but there's no office. It's just forests, oceans, and rivers, which means that birds are often his co-therapist, and so he is calling in from the lands of the Esquimalt and the Songhees nations in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. One caveat, Kostas is not a bird photographer, but our team was so moved by his story and the elements that he's featured. We just thought it was really important for him to feature his story here. So please join me in welcoming Kostas Zolotas.
Awesome. Thanks for that wonderful intro, Vivi. So yeah, as mentioned, I'm a nature-based therapist. So all of my sessions are in the woods or by the ocean, which means I'm constantly surrounded by the more than human world. The thought of doing therapy in an office brings me anxiety, and one reason for this is because in an office I'm all alone in my work, whereas in the woods I always have nature as my co-therapist. And I have a lot of really wonderful stories about the great ways that the flora and fauna around me has jumped into a therapy session, providing just the right insight or perspective shift or grounding moment at just the right time. But the story that I chose today, I chose it because it was one of the first moments that I realized how wonderful of a co-therapist nature can be, and specifically birds. So I'd been working with a 12-year-old client named Billy. All of my clients are named Billy for confidentiality purposes. And we were just starting to explore his anxiety by externalizing it. So giving it a name, Doomy McDoubtface, fantastic name for anxiety. We made a sculpture of what Doomy looked like out of sticks and stones and moss and things like that to show what it would look like if it had a body. We even gave it a voice. It was kind of like a weird pharyngalized voice. And we gave it this voice so that we could converse with it. We'd figured that if we could better understand the language of his anxiety, we could better learn what it was really trying to tell us. And as a result, we could communicate back to his anxiety, letting it know when it's needed and when it should just take a hike. So learning the language of Doomy McDoubtface was key to that communication. So as we were finishing up twirling the moss stash of Doomy McDoubtface, I suddenly became aware of an alarm call of a robin, maybe 100 meters away from where we were. Hey, Billy, do you hear that? I asked, and our busy bodies froze as we listened to the alarm call, and he nodded. What do you think it's saying? He thinks about it and he's like, I don't know, he says. And then took a moment to think, is he saying hello, hello, hello? Maybe, I replied, but would you say hello that many times to someone, and would you be saying it that loudly and consistently? I guess not. Maybe he's saying, come over here, friends, there's food. Or maybe there's a bad guy over there, watch out. And instead of giving the answer, I said, it's a really good guess. You want to go find out? He nodded with excitement. And as we started in the direction of the calls, I made a show of walking very slowly and quietly, partly externally to not scare away the birds, but also secretly to practice some of the body slowing grounding tools that we had talked about in another session to help with anxiety. And he did great. He did so well. His normal method of getting from point A to point B is either running or skipping or literally bouncing. But all of that had suddenly shifted to having a body that was in full control of each intentional, silent movement. And we slithered through the trees as silent as it could be, with the alarm calls getting louder and louder as we got closer, until we finally came to a giant dairy oak tree. And we immediately saw the vociferous robin in there, but it took our eyes a couple of moments to see the target of its clamorous alarm call. And upright in a branch was a big, beautiful barred owl with these incredible black eyes that felt like they were looking into my soul, to the point where I was like, oh dang, I gotta straighten up my soul. And beside me, Billy looked at me, mouth agape, and then he went back to staring at the owl. And we stood there frozen in utter silence for 5 whole minutes, not saying a single word, something that I had never seen Billy do before. Finally, whether it was because the owl felt that it had adequately taught its lesson on how rewarding it can feel to learn the outer languages of nature and our own inner languages of emotion, or because it was finally fed up of the robin screaming into its sensitive ears, the owl flew off. When that was done, when it was gone, Billy and I excitedly high-fived, and we debriefed everything that had happened, what we had just learned about our inside world, our slow walking, our still bodies, our calmness in a moment of great excitement, and the outer world, how we had just learned the beginning of bird language, something that could be a beacon for more incredible experiences in the future. We talked about how the robin's alarm call was like Doomy McDoubtface, warning us about danger, danger, danger. But instead of finding danger, we found an incredible owl teacher and an unforgettable experience. So thank you for letting me share this story with you. It's not one that Billy or I are likely to forget anytime soon. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Kostas. That was great. Really moving. Okay, I have the happy pleasure of introducing Tara Lemezis. I'm happy to say that she is a wildlife photographer based in Portland. She's also the Assistant Director of Adult Education at Bird Alliance of Oregon, where she turned her passion for birds and sharing that with others into a career. In her spare time, she's on a dog walk, geeking out about native plants, reading whatever is next in her book club, and of course, birding all over the Pacific Northwest. Please join me in welcoming Tara Lemezis.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, BirdNote and BirdNote fans. All right, we'll get started here. There's something so unique and lovely about a hummingbird's nest. Females solely construct the intricately woven cup-shaped nest from spider webs, plant down, mosses, and lovingly and carefully placed lichen. At just 1 inch tall and 1.5 inches in diameter, these small wonders are hard to find. Before I ever stumbled upon one myself, I had spent years searching, craning my neck into the tree canopy, scanning every branch for that impossibly tiny camouflaged home. I had seen photos, heard stories, even envied those lucky enough to find one. But I had never been the discoverer. I had never stood before a nest and known that I was the first to see it. That's why, when I came across one tucked away on a hidden horizontal branch, wedged into a downed tree, shaded by decaying leaves, it felt truly special. The only reason I found this nest was because the mother gave it away. She zipped back and forth between cottonwoods, plucking bits of lichen every few minutes, returning to the same messy brush pile about 4 feet off the ground. It was a behavior I'd never slowed down to notice before, but this time I did. It was mid-March in 2020 and the world had just shut down. I, like so many others, was now working from home, adjusting to a new virtual existence. I spent days tethered to a screen, trying to find a rhythm in a world that suddenly felt really surreal and disconnected. It was overwhelming. But stepping outside, walking through my local birding patch, shout out to Whitaker Ponds, breathing in the crisp spring air, listening to the birdsong, and appreciating the blooming osoberry and Oregon grape grounded me. And then there she was, this tiny and determined emerald hummingbird, building something fragile yet resilient. As I followed her careful path, I saw it, my first Anna's hummingbird nest. It felt like a secret, like something precious being shared with me alone. I had been searching for years, but somehow it took this moment, this time of upheaval, for me to find it. After that day, I was consumed with wanting to understand more. I work in bird conservation, so I know how important it is to observe without disturbing. I researched Anna's hummingbird's breeding cycles, reading everything I could about how to ethically monitor nests. I learned that visiting too often could stress the mother or draw predators. I wanted to watch these birds, to soak in the wonder of them, but I also wanted to protect them. So I set a rhythm. Every 5 or 6 days, I would return, watching from a distance with my telephoto lens, keeping my visits brief. But even in those small glimpses, I became completely enthralled. The way she shaped the nest, adjusting it with the slightest movements, the stillness of her incubation, her tiny body warming her tiny jelly bean-sized eggs. And then the moment I was waiting for, the chicks. Two impossibly small, naked creatures, their beaks just barely peeking out. They were so helpless, so dependent, and yet they grew so fast. Every time I visited this hummingbird family, I thought about how lucky I was to witness this quiet but deliberate act of spring, the natural world carrying on as it must. As the days passed, the chicks grew. They transformed from fragile nestlings into restless branchlings. I watched as their feathers filled in, their bodies growing stronger. At 20 days old, on a particularly cold and rainy afternoon, I had a feeling fledging was near. The chicks were taking turns, flapping their wings, standing on the edge of the nest as if testing their strength. Typically, Anna's hummingbirds fledge between 18 and 23 days after hatching, so I knew it could happen literally at any moment. Because I knew fledging was imminent, I visited the nest 2 days in a row. I'd previously been so careful about spacing out my visits and following nest watch protocols, but this felt like a moment I just couldn't miss. On the 21st day post-hatch, that nest could stretch no more. There was barely enough room for one chick to sit comfortably. The stronger of the two perched on top, allowing its sibling to remain inside. On this day, I walked another loop around the pond to give the birds some space before I visited for what would be my last time. When I returned later, the nestling had become a branchling, clumsily fly hopping completely out and onto the same branch the nest was affixed to. There it is on the branch there. And then it happened. As I stood watching, holding my breath and unable to photograph this moment because I was in awe, the first chick rose like a teeny firework, lifting off entirely from the branch. It took short flights around the brush pile, perching on a low tree branch nearby. My heart swelled. I had spent weeks watching this journey, from the fragile beginnings to the first miraculous flight. A moment so small, yet so monumental. It was one of the most breathtaking moments I've ever experienced. And this must be the feeling that poet Mary Oliver wanted to capture when she wrote, "Sometimes I need only to stand wherever I am to be blessed." And in that moment, I had never felt so blessed. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. I just love that you captured the entire journey. Those photographs are amazing. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it is now time to introduce our final speaker, Chrissy McClarren. So Chrissy McClarren fell for the birds in 2009, and so that was just the beginning of an ever-expanding love affair with the wild. What started as an interest in birds soon opened her eyes to the intricate web of life that they navigate, from the insects and the plants that they rely on to the shifting rhythms of the seasons and the landscapes. And so her journey into nature deepened when her partner Andy joined her explorations, and together they found and shared a passion that transformed their lives and led them to cherish every tiny detail of life that they had taken for granted. Today, they are a bird-loving creative team, with Andy capturing breathtaking photographs and Chrissy bringing them to life through editing. Their work is a labor of love and a way to give back and help others find their own connection to the wild through photography, video, writing, and more, all part of Creative Commons for anyone to access, because as she puts it, There is no greater gift that we could give than to serve others in finding their way home, as we did on the path of wild return. So please join me in welcoming Chrissy McClarren.
One morning in early spring, I receive a text from a birder friend that has to be a joke. 3 long-eared owls have been found in a thicket near my house in St. Louis City. Long-eared owls are insanely secretive and incredibly rare to encounter. How did they just happen to show up the day after I've been telling this friend about how much I long to see them? They hadn't been seen in my area in years. Suddenly, I receive another text from a different birder friend. This is real. My pulse is racing. I'm sweating. My chest tightens with this desperation to be there right then. I run to the back room of my house to tell my partner, Andy, who's working from home. He says, "What are we doing still here?" I say to him, "You're going to have to drive. I'll speed." We grab our gear and we are out the door in seconds. In the car, I'm a nervous wreck. I blabber, "Someone's going to scare them away. It will be a miracle if they're still there." Andy rests a hand on my knee, comforting me. I can tell that he's seen that I've crossed my fingers on both hands. I feel a little silly, but I keep them crossed the entire ride there. I needed these owls, these fabulously fortuitous owls. I couldn't shake what had happened 3 days before. My aunt, my loving, playful, sassy, beautiful aunt, had died in an excruciating way from pancreatic cancer. I'd been with her that day. And day after day for weeks before that, I'd brought her sunflowers. I'd sat with her looking through old family photos. I'd hung on her every cheeky response to whatever I said. Still reeling with anger from watching her die in agony, I'm relieved to have these owls as a respite. Finally, we arrive at the spot where the owls had been found. We see friends waving us over, a good sign they're still there. Slow and cautious, we walk into the thicket, lifting my binoculars in the direction others point. I unclench my crossed fingers as soon as I make out the owl's silhouettes through layers and layers of branches, about 60 feet in this small tree. But it's only after looking through our spotting scope that I sigh with deep satisfaction as I see them larger than life. I'm overcome. I am filled with gratitude. I notice that one of them is this ghostly white. I'm drawn to her. She soothes me somehow. I whisper to her, "You're so beautiful, so very, very beautiful." It's very hard to pull away, but we do, not wanting to stress them any more than we might have already. The next day, I wake up anxious. I want to be with them again. So we go, and we go the next day, and we go the next day after that. I'm appalled at my behavior, my compulsion, this what feels like a greediness, my urgent need to commune with them. But when I try to go birding somewhere else that last and fourth day to leave them alone, I start crying about halfway there, and I beg Andy to turn the car around and head in their direction. Silently, I promise the universe this will be my final pilgrimage to worship at their feet. Well, talons. Viewing them again from a distance, a respectful distance, a friend proposes a tempting prospect. She insists we can view them from a closer spot and points out a narrow path leading right up to the tree where the three are perched. I hesitate, but I choose to trust her. With great care, I approach them, trembling, terrified of flushing them. I don't need binoculars. The ghostly one is right in front of me, only 15 feet away. I've never been this close to an owl. Thrilled by the intimacy with her, I'm also about to faint. I have to remind myself to breathe. She's surprisingly tiny, unexpectedly vulnerable, exquisite. When I accidentally snap a twig under my foot, she opens her eyes wide in alarm, but does not flee. I see my aunt staring back at me through those jaundiced yellow eyes, those impossible eyes. Sobs threaten to rise in my chest, but I keep them in check. Friends had told me how they'd experienced visitations from dead beloveds in the form of birds, but I never really appreciated it until this moment. Maybe it's all inspired whimsy, but I suspend my disbelief. This owl is my stubborn aunt, waiting here in purgatory with her two handsome companions, refusing to ascend to heaven until I release my grip on that last grisly image of her death and let this divine vision be my last memory of her. And I do. Full of a profound, weird joy, I remain for a few more minutes, cherishing her before I leave. Some days later, I'm editing Andy's photos, and I run across one of her that stuns me. He's captured her perfectly. The serenity in her eyes infuses me with peace, a last parting gift, a reminder of how any of us have access to fantastical ways of surviving what feels unbearable. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Chrissy. I don't know how you all are doing over there, but through all these stories, I very deliberately didn't listen or read the stories before coming to join and help host the event today. And I had teared up, I laughed out loud, I've got goosebumps through the whole thing. So I hope you all are having a similar experience. Thanks to all the storytellers, Tom, Tanya, Kostas, Terry, Chrissy, thank you for sharing your amazing stories with us today. We also want to say a big thanks to each of our audience members. Listeners are literally what makes BirdNote possible, and as you have likely heard, we're celebrating 20 years of bringing the magic of birds to life through sound-rich stories like these that inspire and connect us to the natural world. And it's all possible because of listeners like you. Every gift, big or small, helps keep these stories coming. Each year, we raise enough funding to keep BirdNote going for another year, and we get there one donation at a time. Every gift matters. Please hear that. Every gift matters. You can donate at birdnote.org. Follow the link in the chat. And thank you again for being a part of the BirdNote community and for helping us share the voices of birds with the world. I'm going to hand the mic back to Bibi, and she will announce the winners of the photography contest.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you. Don't leave yet, everybody. Thank you so much again to our 5 storytellers. Those were just incredible stories and really amazing captures. So thank you, everyone, for sharing your stories with us. And now it is my honor to reveal the winners of BirdNote's 20th anniversary photo contest. And before I do that, I would like to say, first of all, that this year we got so many amazing submissions in. There were so many beautiful photos of all different birds from countries around the world and different environments. And we especially really loved reading all of the stories that came along with the photos. So we're going to start with the general bird photography category. We got almost 400 submissions in this category, and the top 20 finalists were chosen by our guest judges, Walter Katundu, Jen Goldnitz, and Roger Friedman. And the top 3 winners were chosen by public vote, and we've tallied all those votes up, and we're going to announce the first, second, and third place winners of the photo contest. Let's get started with our third place winner in the general bird photography category, Mike Henry. So Mike's photo features this white-winged dove, as he puts it, lost in the sauce while sampling a lovely saguaro blossom. So congratulations to you, Mike. It's a beautiful capture. And we will move on to our second place winner in the general bird photography category. That is Andy Raw. So Andy was headed out to one of his local parks to go birding one winter morning when he got in his car and saw a huge flock of cedar waxwings feeding on a crabapple tree on the road. He says there must have been over 50 cedar waxwings bouncing around the tree and eating up all of the crab apples, and he was thrilled to capture this image of one of the waxwings tossing up a crab apple right before it ate it. Congratulations to you, Andy, for this second place win in the general bird photography category. And finally, our grand prize winner of BirdNote's 20th anniversary photo contest in the general bird photography category, Christopher Baker, with this shot of a beautiful mallard duck. So from Chris's story, mallard ducks bathe by quickly and repeatedly dunking their heads and bodies in the water. And he loves utilizing a fast shutter speed to freeze the water as it rolls off its waterproof feathers. And the early morning sunrise provides a beautiful side light to bring out the colors and the iridescent feathers on the mallard's head. A beautiful shot. Congratulations to you, Christopher, and to all of the winners in the general bird photography category, Mike, Andy, and Christopher. Okay, now it's time to announce the top 3 winners in the conservation actions category. In honor of our From Love to Action campaign, we asked people to submit photos that show ways that they're helping birds. And we received some really remarkable photos and stories, and the top 3 winners were chosen by our Science Advisory Council members. Okay, our third place winner is Amy Tomcho. So Amy's photo was taken in Burnsville, North Carolina, which was the epicenter of Hurricane Helene's devastation. And this particular photo was taken exactly 3 months to the day after the hurricane hit during the annual Christmas bird count. And Amy wasn't even certain that they'd have a group count this year, but each and every one of their birders enthusiastically stepped up when she asked who may be willing to count this year. So they just really appreciated that return to some sense of normalcy. So together, exactly 3 months after the water flowed through their town 30 feet high, they braved the difficult sights and conducted their Christmas bird count. Amy wrote that it was simultaneously heart-wrenching and uplifting following the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. And in her story, she notes that it reminded her of what once was, those places and the people of the past, and the enduring presence of our feathered friends who never cease to promise us a melodious future. And Amy continues to share that birding has the power to bring people together, and this year was no different. In terms of bird behavior, there were larger flocks, low counts of seed eaters and large raptors, among others. However, the total species and number count is comparable to years past. And congratulations to you, Amy, and thank you for sharing this photo and the story. Moving on to our second place winner in the conservation actions category. Congratulations to James Folletti. So this photograph, which is titled Generations, captures a powerful moment of 3 generations of female bird watchers sharing in the joy of birding during an Audubon Society walk in New Jersey during the peak of fall migration. And the moment represents an enduring connection between nature, education, and conservation, and it's a testament to the importance of fostering environmental awareness across generations. It embodies the essence of nature's classroom, where curiosity and observation and appreciation for the natural world are passed down from one generation to the next, and the presence of multiple generations in one photo just highlights how conservation, it's not just about protecting habitats, but also making sure that future stewards inherit a love and responsibility for the natural world. And the significance of female bird watchers in this photo just underscores a growing movement of inclusivity in birding and conservation. And so by engaging in these bird walks and documenting their observations through photography and sharing their discoveries, they're actively contributing to the legacy of conservation. So the photo is not just about bird watching, it's about sharing stories and knowledge and passion, and passing that down through the generations. It's a reminder that every moment that's spent in nature, whether it's with binoculars or with a camera, has the power to inspire and entertain, and educate and preserve our natural world for the future. So it's a wonderful shot. Thank you. And congratulations to you, James, for your second place winner in our conservation actions category. And finally, our grand prize winner of BirdNote's 20th anniversary photo contest in the conservation actions category is James Shane. So from James's story, Boise State University created a Raptor Research Center, or an RRC, to support graduate education for a unique Masters of Science in Raptor Biology program, and conduct research about birds of prey. One of their most prominent programs is the study of burrowing owls in a nearby national conservation area. And so the RRC, or the Raptor Research Center, students and faculty have placed over 300 man-made burrows in the high desert area of the conservation area. And each year, students and staff visit these man-made burrows to monitor nesting owls. They open the occupied burrows to count eggs, and they reopen them later to capture and obtain tissue samples and apply leg bands to as many hatchlings and adults as they can. And so in this photo, one of the researchers is returning one of the recently captured adult burrowing owls to a man-made burrow. So thank you for featuring this photo and for sharing it and for sharing the story. And congratulations to you, James, and congratulations to all of our winners in both of the categories. And thanks to everyone who participated in BirdNote's 20th anniversary photo contest. And so these photos and their stories will be up on birdnote.org, so be sure to check that out. And a recording of the event will be up on birdnote.org as well. I want to thank our storytellers one more time for taking the time to share your amazing stories with us. And that is a wrap for this year's photo contest and for BirdNote's first ever virtual storytelling hour. Thank you everyone for joining us, and you can visit birdnote.org to listen to our stories, learn all about BirdNote, and support BirdNote's work. Thank you everyone for joining us.